The New Japan Soul Tour is rolling on, basically doing the same show every night, but we're going to go over some of the news and notes that came from those shows. There was also bigger news on a mainstream sports name in Japan joining up with the promotion. Plus, our junior heavyweight champ was cut to ribbons once again. We're going to cover all that and look ahead to matches, some of which we're looking at pretty reluctantly, but we're going to talk about them. With Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway, and this is Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Jeremy, it was a busy week, as it turned out. There were quite a few shows. There was quite a bit of news. Now, one piece of it I think is quite good, but there was also some bad news regarding some people's families and health and all that. So it did seem like it was a hectic week. It doesn't feel like it's been 7 days since our last show here. There's been a lot going on. How are you feeling?
I personally have a very overwhelming week, and the New Japan stuff was a nice little refresher, a break away from the action of what is my real life stuff got going on.
Yeah.
But I will say I could watch a Death Pain Invitational show once every 2 years, and I'm glad that that's the pace that we're getting at this point.
It was different, wasn't it? So we're going to get into all that. I want to say hello to the folks that are joining us live. Fernando Zayas is here. Venkin is here. Good to see you. Brad, hello. Colin, glad you're here as well. So, yeah, we had the Death Pain Invitational. We're going to go over that. Going to go over Soul. But I think, and Maria Graciela Zayas is here.
You know what's funny about the Death Pain Invitational I just thought about? Is that they have this other, program called New Japan Soul going on.
Mm-hmm.
But the Death Pain Invitational was literally people's souls leaving their bodies during their matches from the amount of pain that they inflicted on each other.
Pretty violent day, I know.
Oh my God.
It featured a surprise from the Stardom coming in. We saw some of that. So there have been a lot of surprises over the course of the week with that. I don't know if you saw, Jeremy, but the first real big name to jump from Marigold to Stardom took place over the weekend. Bozilla, yeah. Bozilla has moved over and is now the monster heel.
I did see it, but I don't know the ramifications of it.
And we have a new IWGP Women's Champion. We're going to go over all that. So let's just get to this because we've got a lot of news and notes. Sure. The one thing that I think was a piece of good news was after rumors going around for a while, Aaron Wolf has now signed with New Japan Pro Wrestling and appears to be getting a lot of attention from the company. Of course, he was a judo player, and he won a gold medal at the 2020 Olympics, which took place in 2021 because of the pandemic in Japan. He is a Japanese citizen, speaks Japanese and all that. I believe he has one American parent, one Japanese parent, but born and raised in Japan. And Jeremy, looking at this from a mainstream standpoint, this guy is probably more famous than anybody in New Japan. He is a big name in the country there as a sports star. And the idea that he is joining up with New Japan, I think is going to bring some publicity to the company. It goes back to the old Inokiism a little bit of trying to sign legitimate mixed martial artists and of various types. You know, we talked a little bit about how Inoki just recently, we talked a little bit about how he got some of those Russian fighters in and wrestlers and Aaron Wolf, another big time mainstream name. He is a bigger name in judo in Japan than Bolton was, even though Bolton was a world-class Greco-Roman wrestler. This is going to get some real mainstream publicity. He's going to debut at Wrestle Kingdom. That's what they said at this press conference. So that would be his first match. So we'll have Tanahashi's retirement, all of the various matches that go into Wrestle Kingdom we're not aware of yet, and we will have Aaron Wolf's debut. So they're going to start him off in the Dome. They're going to get as much mainstream publicity as they can get out of this. We also found out Wrestle Kingdom will be broadcast on television in Japan for the first time in many years and not just available on World. So they are doing some things to try to get out in front of more eyeballs. And
they're swinging big.
They are swinging big. And we'll see how all that turns out. And I'm going to talk about my trepidation as we get closer to it. But what were your thoughts this week when you saw Aaron Wolf signing on with New Japan?
So I saw the announcement overnight. It must have been Sunday or Monday night. I don't remember what. Like I said, the week has been a blur, but I remember seeing it in the middle of the night, and I didn't know who Aaron Wolf was. I had heard the name, and I know that he had been rumored. You could see it in the New Japan subreddits, and just kind of a name that they were trying to make it happen. And then it was announced, and you got the announcement. You got the Wrestle Kingdom. We're doing the debut at Wrestle Kingdom. This is like almost like a Brock Lesnar kind of thing with WWE, if you kind of think about it like that, like big star. And when I was trying to wrap my head around it, I had a couple of context things. And first was Chris Samsa, discussing in one of the Discords that this guy was, when they signed him, Tanahashi and Nagata were high-fiving in the back, like this is kind of like, this was a big thing for them. This was, they believe that this guy is the future. And, you listen to Wrestling Observer Radio and Dave Meltzer's talking about it. And, he's talking about how Aaron Wolf went to Okada and said, what do I need to do to be the best wrestler in the world? And he said, you need to come to New Japan and you need to train there. And he is trying to emulate the Okada path with this work. And he may not do the Young Lion route because Okada didn't left and came back, but this is what they want from him. They want to give him a long-term contract, build the promotion around him, make him a guy that's not going to leave for AEW or WWE. He is going to be their star, and they're going to ideally sell out Wrestle Kingdoms on his name. Like this is what they want out of this guy. And it's a tall order. It is absolutely, nobody's been able to do it for a while, like getting those numbers, 25,000. They want, if they can't get consistently those numbers with this guy, in 4 or 5 years, is this going to be a success or a failure? That's kind of going to be the metric for it.
Well, it's something that they have high hopes for. Let's just say that. So, and again, any publicity in that realm, as far as bringing in some mainstream pub, is considered good, and they're going to.
Yeah, when you swing big though, and you miss, it's bigger than when it's a normal attempt. You know what I mean? So this is a big swing.
Martial arts is still very big in Japan. It's still very popular, and martial artists are still big celebrities there. He won just looking at his resume, the 2017 World Championship gold medal. So that's not the Olympics, but 2017 world title. And then 4 years later, as it turns out, it's supposed to be the 2020 Olympics. It's funny, it's still called the 2020 Olympics, but they took place right. And but he won the gold medal there. So he's made it to the top, and of course he's winning a gold medal as a Japanese person in Japan, despite not having crowds because of the pandemic. Obviously, still watched by millions upon millions of people within the country. So his name is out there. I would say. Bigger name in Japan than maybe Stevenson was here in the U.S. And Stevenson was known here, but and that did make a lot of the press when Stevenson signed with WWE. Didn't end up working out. Hopefully, right. Wolf is a different story. So, but that would be kind of the comp in a way.
Sure, you could think about Kurt Angle too. Like the guy picked it up and he went to the race. Like he immediately understood what this was and was able to acclimate and progress at an amazing pace. There are different comps there, and that's what the risk is there's a wide range of outcomes to this because he's not going a traditional route and he is not a traditional dojo trainee. There's going to be higher expectations, but they're also probably going to be throwing every resource possible on that roster to get him up to speed. The guys that they don't normally throw in there to get you going. He's getting time with all those guys. I hope he's going on tour. I hope that every time they're putting up a ring at a different venue during the G1, I hope he's getting ring time and training with all those guys. That's the kind of stuff I'm hoping for.
Yeah, they're highly invested in making this work. And we saw, for instance, Matsumoto, the newest young lion, that's doing these 10-minute draws with Zane J around the NJPW Seoul Tour. It was mentioned in commentary from Chris Charlton at the Cork and Hall show that he trained for about a year or so before he ever saw the light of day in a match. And Wolf is getting about 6 months. And so he's fast-tracked a little bit, but you know that his very first debut, remember, Bolton Oleg did the same thing. He showed up in a big match, at a big show. They did a 5-minute thing, and we're going to see how far along he is if they announce this as a 5-minute exhibition when it draws near. And like, oh, okay, they're going to choreograph something kind of, neat and clean and get him in and out of there. If he has a full, 10-minute time limit and goes 8 minutes or goes the time limit with somebody else, then we'll know that they're feeling pretty good about him. Anything more than that's gravy. But I think they will take care of him, and they're not going to put him in a position to fail.
Here's a fun one. Who do they put him in the ring with?
Oh, I mean, you got all kinds of time to figure that stuff out. And that's all going to hinge more on where he is in his development. I don't think they're going to have the slightest idea of that until November. Would be the earliest I think they would know who they're going to put him in the ring. They might have an idea now, like, well, here's the dream scenario, but when it gets closer, they might just think, maybe a few minutes with a technician is more of the.
Yeah, I was thinking Zack Sabre Jr.
I'm hoping Zach has something a little more to do at Kingdom than that, but maybe.
I mean, what would he have? You know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, we got 6 months.
We're really thinking about like the landscape here. It gets a little thin at the top for Zack Sabre Jr. to have anything other than like a middle of the card match.
Way too early to tell right there. Yeah. So he was in the 100 kilogram class, the weight class there. So that makes him about 220 pounds as he fought. So he's probably a little bit bigger than that now because they have to trim down and things like that for those competitions and make weight that he no longer has to make. So he's a fairly big dude, is what I'm saying. Is he would be in the heavyweight division pretty comfortably.
Yeah, he looked like he was able to throw guys around pretty easily with the way he was carrying that suit. Looked good, looked healthy, but
yeah, he did.
I think he might be looking a little more muscular at the top and slender in the middle, if you know what I'm saying.
That is, now we're in wait and see mode. We're not going to see this guy debut until January, so we won't know what we get until.
We have talked about it. Now we will return in 5 months.
Yeah. But again, if you're going to be on television, and it looks like Wrestle Kingdom this year will be on TV in Japan, not just as a NJPW World show or anything like that. Having a mainstream sports star on the card, not a bad move. Bad move. All right. Now, we also got some bad news over the course of this tour. Now, we mentioned last week that ELP had been pulled off of the show that ran on Thursday. So it was the day of our show last week. He was just pulled off the card because his knee was bothering him. I haven't seen him since, unfortunately. They're taking it day to day. No announcement that he's out of the G1 or anything like that. There's all kinds of speculation. I think this is more of a no need to take any chances with him in a road to show, and let's just make sure he's healthy for the G1. So I think this is more cautionary rather than some severe injury. There's just not a whole lot of point in putting him in a multi-man match if he's a little banged up. It's more important to have him fully ready for the G1. I think they would have announced if he were out of it by now. And then Bad Luck Fale, unfortunately, he had some sort of issue with his family, and that's really all that they've said. But that he will be out of a loss in the family, which sounds like a death in the family. Either way, our thoughts are with Fale and his family. Hope everything is okay, or they're recovering as best they can from this. We don't have a lot of detail, but he is off the rest of this tour. His play-in match for the G1 has been he's been pulled from that and replaced with Satoshi Kojima. So for anybody who was particularly worried about Ryohei Oiwa being in the G1, I think you're okay. It's going to be Satoshi Kojima and Ryohei Oiwa for that play-in match. And and then we'll get into the domino effect of that, which is if you're a Yoshihashi fan, I am sorry to you as well, because it's looking pretty grim in that sense. But it's Fale off the tour. So, frankly, Kojima and Oiwa is going to be a better match, and knowing that Oiwa is going to be comfortably in the G1 is good news.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone is particularly excited at the thought of Don Fale even threatening to be in the G1 this year.
Certainly not.
I think this kind of spelled out that it was probably always going to be Ryohei Oiwa, because it seemed very easily to just put somebody else into that match to oppose him. And if Oiwa wasn't going to be in the G1 this year, we were going to have far bigger problems about the landscape of New Japan, in which I would start to believe in your House of Torture misery vibes. With that being said, does ELP have a match for July 4th? I felt like he had something with a mystery opponent.
He has something.
An open challenge.
He has something for Tanahashi Jam, which is coming up even sooner than that. He is doing an open challenge at Tanahashi Jam.
That's what it was. Okay, yeah. He does have an open challenge.
And that's still on for now.
Yeah. So, and that is 3 days from now, right?
The 29th. Yeah, that's going to be Sunday, I believe. Yeah. So
I think we're fine. Like, I don't want to sit here and like announce it, but I feel like if he had a very serious knee injury, they would get their ducks in a row for the G1 and have this all set up and figured out and ready to go. They're not doing that. It's more like what you said. Let's just get this guy off the card. He's needed. He's important. This isn't necessary right now. And, Mitch can match Yuya and Shota. That's basically what they do now.
Yeah, and that is what they're doing in those matches. They're just kind of moving those general Hantai baby faces around. Another symptom of how the booking isn't quite working in New Japan is that you can't just move people around and no one seems to notice. That's not a good sign either, guys. Anyway, moving on to that. So that's what's going on with Aaron Wolf, with Fale, and with ELP. And Colin mentions that if his knee is bothering him, competing in the G1 will not help. Also true, but I think they're just kind of hoping that if it's bruised, if it's swelling or something like that, that it'll heal up in time and it'll be back at it. So, all right. So do we? I put it off long enough. Do we need to talk about these soul shows, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Or do we want to? No, wait. No, we don't have to. Let's talk about the women's title. So
that was great.
All right. Let's delay it even further. So we have a new IWGP Women's Champion. I was kind of hoping that they would put Shuri over here. I like Shuri. I'm a big fan of her work. That said, Suri is one of the best wrestlers on earth.
Yep.
And so having her as the IWGP champion, she's certainly a worthy champion. It just feels like, what can you say? Bushiroad and Shuri, they're just not that into you, Shuri. They just have her just in the cards. But Suri, fantastic wrestler, and she won it at Stardom Conversion, the same show where Bazilla debuted, and she came out on top in a fantastic match with Shuri, won the IWGP Women's title. So there you go. I mean, that IWGP title, Jeremy, we don't see it very much outside of January in the Dome. It was not even rumored to be a part of the second biggest show of the year, which is Dominion. So it's kind of just another Stardom title that lives over there, but for once a year. And the Strong title seems to have more
play in the Western states.
Yeah, so they've made that. So this title just feels like another Stardom belt to me, except when they come around to Kingdom and then they kind of throw it on there in the middle. So again, we've always been disappointed a little bit with how this women's title thing has gone. I don't think anybody feels like it's been handled particularly well by Bushiroad. But, we've had great champions. The funny thing is almost everyone who's held that belt has been world-class as far as wrestling goes. Mm-hmm. All of them have. Yeah, there's not a dud in that bunch, really. Willow Nightingale was a surprise, but turned out to be perfectly worthy of it. But once again, I don't think it plays into the canon of New Japan Pro Wrestling all that much anymore.
No, I think you're on the right track here. When I saw this happen, my immediate thought was I wondered if this was a play to get Suri naturally on Forbidden Door in the UK. Because, if you remember, she was infantilized and turned into a Japanese schoolgirl gimmick in WWE. If you put her on Forbidden Door, there's no risk that WWE is going to poach her because she's going to want nothing to do with that. So it's a no-risk investment on a Joshi wrestler to like heighten up the women's division for a show in AEW because they want to do that, and they would probably push for something like this for 3 months down the line to serve their own purposes, even though Sari isn't typically a Stardom or like New Japan Bushiroad contracted wrestler. So that was to me,
she works for everybody.
Yeah, she's freelance. Like she can do whatever she wants and anywhere. But there are people that she won't work for, which makes her a safe and extremely talented person to have wrestling other women on an international show.
Sari and Iroha from Marvelous, the Marvelous top champ, she's working for everybody in the world too, except Stardom right now. She's going Marty Gold and showing up at Noah shows and everything else. She's the GHC women's champion. So yeah, a couple of freelancers that are really doing pretty well. Let's get to some comments because fair enough. Venkin, you were correct. I thought they might give Sherry a bone here, but nope.
I was on the Sari train too. Yeah, I was definitely thinking like I think they would do it.
Colin says, I hate this so much. They treated Shuri horribly. He said, Shuri is not a transitional champion, but Bushiroad made her one, and he hates it. I feel bad for her, too. She's more talented than what they've given her to do. Truth be told, except for some trios stuff, Shuri has been out of the picture since she dropped the title to Julia, really. She just hasn't been consistently in the title mix, the top mix. And she has great matches, but she hasn't been in the world championship mix in Stardom truly since she dropped the title to Julia after the 5-star Grand Prix years ago. It's a strange thing. Let's see here. We had some others. Yeah, and Venkin says that he knew when Shuri took her time before handing the belt to the ref that was going to happen. Okay, and then Brad says,
"Whoa! Let me ask this real quick. What's stopping them from putting the belt on her in the future?"
Nothing, except we have years of evidence that they just don't see her as a real champion anymore. Okay. And it's a frustrating thing for fans because she had a good reign when she was the red belt champion. It was very strong. And it built beautifully to that story with her former tag team partner, Julia, rising to the top and unseating her. That was all good. I mean, all of that was just terrific. And
but with the mass exodus of talent that has left, like, is it really the same situation for her, or is it just she's somebody at the top level that they can keep going back to?
Yeah, well, they don't go back to her is the thing. Like she won this belt, like they mentioned in the comments, probably just to have a Stardom wrestler take it off of Mayu. But when they knew Mayu was leaving, but it's been a thing with Shuri. She has been she's a really good wrestler who has been stuck in 6-person tags and 8-person tags for years now without any long-term story except a little bit when Konami turned on her but then nothing really ended up happening with that because Konami got hurt right away and then it just kind of went away. And there hasn't been a long-term story or title situation with her despite her being a world-class wrestler in several years. And it's just a little odd. For some reason, they just don't see her at that spot. And then let's see here. What they mentioned here. Yeah, Brad said that it was an incredible match, and the grappling they did was beautiful. They're fantastic. And Brad says, I think the phrase fumbled is overused by fans, but WWE really fumbled the ball with Sari. Boy, that's the truth. Yeah, they absolutely did. I don't know what it was about her they didn't get, because they didn't fumble with EO. It took a while. They didn't fumble with Asuka at all. Again, it took a while, and there were ups and downs, but Vince McMahon was kind of off in the woods for a while when EO and Kyrie were first up and all that kind of stuff, but they stuck with it, and now they seem to know what they have with those people. But for some reason, Sari was, and Julia's doing well, but Sari was a blind spot for him. They just couldn't see that she was as good as she was. Meiko Satomura, who I have all kinds of respect for, was treated better in NXT UK than Sari was in the United States. It's very puzzling, considering they actually have a decent track record with established Japanese women wrestlers in the last few years. You can't say that it took a while, but you can't say that they totally missed the boat with EO, Kyrie, and Asuka. You can't say that at all.
They had a mat on for all those fresh out of college talents at the time.
Mhm.
And they were focusing on the Tiffany Strattons and the Lash Legends, and they had their Joshi talents. You know what I mean? Like they had their EOS guys. They didn't have to focus on that because they already had all the that kind of group of talent locked in, and they looked at Sari and like, well, she's clearly not as good as these other women. And it's like, actually, no, you just don't know that like she's the next generation. But they signed her, you know, like that's the amazing thing. Like you sign her and then you don't know what you're doing with her after like you sign her, and then you put the blame on her somehow for failing, and then she leaves the system immediately and is like, yeah, no, let's reset the whole like expectation.
Immediately top 5 in the world. Yeah. Well, you know, what can you say? You're not gonna bat 1,000, I suppose. But that one's mysterious.
That was what happens when you swing and a miss.
But again, I don't know how much this is going to affect New Japan because they have this title, but they don't really put it on New Japan shows. Yep. It just feels like something that's going to show up on Stardom shows really there. So, I mean, the good news for Stardom fans, we'll probably see Sari more. Okay, well, I won't complain about that. When she came out, she actually made her challenge at the show I attended in Japan in May right there. And just walking out, there was this kind of a buzz. People realized she was in street clothes because she wasn't wrestling on the card. And so she just kind of climbed into the ring. And like, who's that? And oh, damn, that's Sari. You know, and everybody, there was this little buzz in there. She really has that kind of cachet with fans in Japan that they see her as something special no matter what promotion she pops up for. So, and she builds her own shows, Sariism, that are selling out, and then goes to the promotion, says, I'm the best, and beats everyone. It's not a bad way to live if you think about it from her perspective. So she's having a good time. And it worked out for her. She bet on herself and won. That's a nice story. Do we have to do the soul stuff now? Do we have to?
I got soul, and everybody knows.
Oh God, these shows are so bad. All right. Anyway, we'll get to this. We'll claw our way through this soul tour. The show is almost the same. It reminds me a little bit of when WWE house shows would literally be the same thing night to night to night. And that's kind of what we're getting with this soul tour. There's very little creativity in this. They're basically doing the same thing. So we get the 10-minute draw between Matsumoto and Zane J as they get their reps. That opens
compelling stuff.
Yeah, and they're talented guys, and the young lions are always fun for me. I really enjoy seeing them develop and come along. Daiki Nagai and Masatori Yasuda are having a lot of matches against each other in the second match, and so the youngest of the young lions go first, then the next ones, and we're seeing their moveset opened up a little bit. They're starting to be allowed to do a little more. And they're coming along, basically trading wins back and forth. The story with them is no longer the 23 time limit draws they had to begin their careers against one another. But now it's that when Yasuda wins, he wins faster than when Nagai wins. It takes Nagai longer to beat Yasuda. When Yasuda gets the win, he gets it quickly. There you go. And we'll see how that turns out as they go along. And then afterwards, we get the preview tags, and we're seeing 2 per show with House of Torture. Said Fale has been pulled off, so instead of 10 mans, they're 8 mans, and those types of things. Mostly, it is House of Torture going over. They've beaten Dick Togo in there as well for a babyface win, but it's mostly just to get the idea of this new pumped up House of Torture group with 10 guys in it. For a couple of matches, you suffer through that. And then there's a little preview of Tanahashi, Uemura, something along those lines. Tanahashi did have a singles match against Tomoaki Honma this week. He did do that one, so he wasn't in a preview tag there. And the whole thing ends with your TMDK, Zach and company, wrestling Goto and company. And for the most part, the TMDK crew is Hartley Jackson and Ryohei Oiwa. And on the other side, Goto works through Yoshihashi. Sometimes Uemura's in there with him, or Shota, so they kind of shuffle that around a little bit. But it's Goto and company versus Zach and company. And that pretty much
interesting. They put an article on New Japan 1972 about how TMDK keep losing. They've lost like 3 in a row, and the website went so far as to actually point it out in an article. on the website.
It just shows how little effort they're kind of putting into this. But they were at Big Wing in Yamagata. That one was the one where Honma got his singles match against Tanahashi. They did what they could, but Honma just can't move a whole lot. Yamagata drew 905, which is up from the last couple of times through, so that's good. Fukushima on Sunday, basically the same show. This time they put Honma in the main event so TMDK could get that win instead of Hartley Jackson taking the loss. That one, not so much. 805 in attendance. That was 1,071 last year, so they dropped almost 300 people from the last time through. Monday was in Korakuen, Jeremy, and in case you're wondering if this is taking off like a rocket, 1,100 at Korakuen Hall. Not great. Not great. That place holds a lot more than that, and it's in the biggest city in the world. Yeah, that's pretty weak attendance. I know it was a Monday. I know it was the work week, but boy, there were play-in matches for the G1. And it only drew 1,100, just to show where the enthusiasm was for this show right there.
They were good playing matches.
Yeah, still, it's deflating. Here's my question on this one, Jeremy.
Okay.
We just had to suffer through a ton of people joining House of Torture.
Mm-hmm.
Two of them were Chase Owens and Don Fale.
Okay.
Now, I understand the whole Fale thing, what's happened with him is he was pulled off the tour and all that. But when they made this match, when they made these play-in matches, they didn't know that. Correct? Fair enough?
Yes.
So they have Drilla Maloney. They want to put Drilla Maloney in the G1. We now fully believe that they had Don Fale in a play-in match. And Don Fale was not going to be part of the G1, probably not in good enough shape to do so. Maybe he doesn't have the time because he's running Tamashi in his school and he just doesn't, but nevertheless, I don't think anybody here wants Don Fale, 9 singles matches from this Don Fale, this kind of out of shape, beat up Don Fale.
Enticing. No, it does not.
Did Don Fale just come out as the surprise former Bullet Club member to shock the War Dogs and turn in a turn that just about everybody saw coming with Chase Owens? Didn't that just happen? Did I not? I didn't sleep through that, right?
No.
Why the hell wasn't the match Don Fale versus Drilla Maloney? If you're going to put Drilla in and you're not going to put him in, isn't that a ready-made match for Drilla Maloney to go after the guy that just stabbed him in the back? Isn't that just sitting there?
It is just sitting there. Do you really want Don Fale no selling for Drilla Maloney?
I want him losing to him. Sure. I think that would help. I think that would help Maloney. Yes, I think that would be fine. It wouldn't be a great match, but it wouldn't be the main event anyway. Taichi and Callum Newman would be the main event, which was a damn good match.
Logic-wise, I think that your logic is sound.
Thank you.
I do think that the match that we saw that got Drilla Maloney into the G1 did a ton of goodwill for him. And that would come at a cost.
Well, he's been wrestling Ishii for a while. It was
their fourth match.
It's their fourth match. Now, I don't have a problem. It was good. It was good. Again, but there's a story here that they just kind of ignored, and I thought that was silly. So Drilla and Ishii, that's fine. Again, Ishii probably can't do the tournament anymore.
That's how I felt about it the entire time. I was like, This was not shocking to me at all.
Newman beating Taichi in the main event at Korakuen, that one hurt.
Different.
That one hurt. I wanted to see Newman in the tournament.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
This is not against Callum Newman. But it's annoying that this was the pairing in the play-in. And once again, Taichi is out. I recognize he's up there in age as well.
Did you listen to the English commentary or the Japanese commentary for this?
I had Chris on for this one here. But when I think of what's coming on July 4th, I really, really cringe. Just the idea that we're probably going to have 9 Chase Owens matches, and Taichi isn't going to be in the G1 this year. And they played it up all year long to build up. You felt bad for Taichi, and you're hoping that he would get in there. And then they had this big win for the World Tag Team titles, and you were thrilled with it, and everybody loved that. It was one of the few bright spots of an otherwise fairly dismal Dominion card. That was one where there was a bit of emotional catharsis. And then to just kind of pull the plug there with Taichi again not getting in when we are almost certainly going to get Chase Owens. This is God. I really didn't like that at all.
I'm like 55-45 that it's Chase Owens going in. I don't think it's a sure thing. I think with all the other younger talent and that being the last one, there's still, some sense that Yoshihashi could get in there.
Yoshihashi's not young.
I understand, but Chase Owens isn't young either. Like there's no advantage or disadvantage to Chase Owens or Yoshihashi.
Oh, yes, there is. Yes, there is. No. I will die on this.
Let me finish here. For the greater landscape of the G1, I think that Yoshihashi is the superior pick.
Of course. He's a much better wrestler. Much better.
But for the landscape of heels, faces, wins, losses, whatever intricate booking and storytelling, it may be that Chase Owens is a better fit for what they have planned. And maybe what they have planned isn't ideal as a result of that. I'm just saying that when you look at what we've seen with Callum Newman and Drilla Maloney and Ryohei Oiwa versus Satoshi Kojima, which you can read between the lines on that one.
Yeah.
This one is really the one where it's you're almost led to believe that it's inevitable that Chase Owens is going to go into the G1 with the way that they're booking the rest of this. And maybe it's not. Maybe this is all just set up and I gotcha. And I'm just, that's the part of it that I'm maybe. So that was the only thing for me is that when I was looking at him, they've done a lot to try and give a fresh coat of paint to Chase Owens. But Chase Owens has always been on the cusp, and he is in a position of having to work his ass off to keep his job rather than Yoshihashi is on a bubble himself. Yoshihashi's a made guy in New Japan, and if they want to put him on that G1, it would make perfect sense.
I have defended Chase Owens on this show many times, but defended him in the sense that I felt like he served a real purpose in Bullet Club, which is somebody who could have decent matches. I don't think Chase is a bad wrestler. I know a lot of people think Chase is a bad wrestler. I disagree on that. I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's great. But in his role, he didn't have to be. He just had to do a good job and be the guy that can lose falls. And of course, you don't have somebody lose every single fall ever. But it's with Chase, he could pull off an upset every once in a while. I was okay with that. But there was a level to which I don't want to see Chase Owens go past. And to be honest, the G1 this year is a level I don't want to. I don't want to see 9 important Chase Owens singles matches. Maybe we won't, but I don't. I feel like that's the way this is headed, especially since now we know that Fale is not going to do it. I feel like there's going to be another House of Torture representative in there, and it's going to be Chase when it's not Taichi, when it's not Yoshihashi. Ugh. And I mean, they're trying to put this new coat of paint on him, Jeremy, and it's not working. He's wearing cowboy boots that don't fit. He's dressing up like he's been watching tapes of 1985 Black Bart, only he's not as good of a promo as Ricky Harris was. And he just looks like in those boots and that trench coat, he looks like a kid playing dress up, like he's clopping around at the Tacova store in the boots, hey, Daddy, look at me. I got on bang, bang. I'm a cowboy. That's what Chase looks like. They don't fit. He doesn't move well in them. It's silly looking. And it's, no. Maybe he'll dial it in. Maybe he'll dial in this character a little bit, but I don't want this in my G1. Keep this out. And that goes to another point with House of Torture I'm going to make in a minute, but go ahead with your thoughts here.
You've already got one TMDK guy, presumably in both blocks. You've already got one House of Torture guy, presumably in both blocks. You've got a Bullet Club guy, presumably in both blocks. Now you have 2 in one block. It's not completely out of the question that it's Ren and it's Evil only in the G1, which, would probably lead to better outcomes for House of Torture if you're really kind of thinking about it, but that's not what they care about, apparently.
Chase Owens, we have Hangman at home. That's from Brad.
Nice. I'm in wait and see mode.
Adam Page has enough problems of his own, let alone with chasing. Oh God,
a lot of the frustrations that you have with House of Torture that you and I have talked about both privately and on the air. Like the pendulum, the seesaw, the pendulum swing really kind of starts with what they do with Chase Owens here at this match. Is it like, are we just going to cram this gimmick down your throat, or there's still going to be moments of like you win some and you lose some? I think a more measured approach out of the gate, given how dominant Dominion was, is probably the better play. But at the same time, like, I don't even know just how consequential the Yoshihashi or Chase Owens in the G1 would be if they were actually in.
Not toward the standings, but I'd much rather see the matches.
Sure.
I just don't want to. That goes to my point with House of Torture and why I am troubled with this whole direction. Is their entire point is a refusal to have good matches, and it's the way that they kind of thumb their nose at New Japan as a heel faction is we don't believe in doing good matches for you. We're going and it's every single House of Torture match follows that same pattern where you're just waiting for the bad ref bump, and then you get the interference, and then you get the weapons, and then you get the crap, and it never looks particularly good. And now we're going to have a multitude of these in my G1. Mm-hmm. House of Torture was tolerable as a mid-card thing where you
everyone knew what it was, and you knew it wasn't going to be above a certain level, just like
it's the Jimmy Valiant Paul Jones match in the middle of Crockett Promotions, where all the crap wrestlers were in one 6-man tag in the middle of it, and then it goes to intermission, and then we get the good stuff again.
Right.
House of Torture was a little bit like that. There are good wrestlers there that aren't allowed to wrestle well, and again. I just go back to how these guys all just kind of end up doing the same things. And, I just look at this stuff and just think this isn't what I want in the G1. And when House of Torture would leave that bubble of being an occasional Korakuen Hall main event thing or something like that, they would challenge for titles, even win the trios titles sometimes or whatever. The fans would kind of push back against it a little bit. Like this isn't like we can handle this and we'll chant go home, but don't put this in my main event.
Right.
Don't make this the focal point of the company. And the idea that we're going to take this thing that we had been kind of tolerating in the middle of the card and make it the entire story of New Japan, which just seems to be where this thing is going. So far, Goto has been separated from that. They've kept him with Zack. They've kept him with Shingo. It hasn't been with Evil or Ren or Sonata, thank God. And Sonata seems completely checked out. And no, if you wear clown boots and you dress like Elegant, I don't take you seriously as a wrestler anymore. And you're educating me that I don't need to. I don't want to see this version of it now go through 4 guys in the G1 where now at least 2 a night and sometimes 4 in a night is a House of Torture interference match. This isn't why New Japan it's not why the G1 is the best tournament in wrestling. It's not why New Japan has the best wrestling when it's hitting. It's just painful for me to think of that we are moving away to this good guy, all these people lining up, and on Hantai's side, everybody is
white hat versus black hat.
Kissing babies, taking pictures, wiping towels with their sweat and handing them back to the crowd, and the nice sweet boys that you want to take home to mom. And then on the other side, you have this cartoony mustache twirling, sometimes literally cackling. If you think about what Evil and Show does, this shit. And it's all the same, and these guys all blend in to where none of them stand out. And we're going from this intricate storytelling to something that is juvenile and Saturday morning cartoonish and simple, basic, and frankly insulting to people who have watched New Japan this long and love the intricate storytelling that New Japan has made its own over the last few years. And it's really disturbing to me that they are headed that way. And we're still seeing some of it. Like we're seeing Ishii and Taichi. They brought back their stories from 10 years in there. We're seeing some of the stuff with, like, for instance, like Ryohei Oiwa joining TMDK. Oiwa joined TMDK. Do you remember when they recruited Kosei Fujita in the first place and they said, you're going to be our guy? Oiwa was standing there like, what? I helped you with House of Torture 1.2. What the hell? What about me? Right? They remembered that. And then years later, it was just, Zach was just like, I know, I was there. I saw you. And, like it just goes to the depth that the thought they put into this, how things from years ago come in. With this, it's like Justice League versus the Legion of Doom.
Single-colored paintbrush.
And I'm saying like Doki had this deep, rich story of him working his way into New Japan, then working his way through New Japan. And they sacrificed all that so that now, after all the emotional investment we put into Doki, him being heel isn't the problem, Jeremy. My problem is now Doki matches after he was one of the most interesting people in the company over the last year. The Doki match now is one where we're sitting there waiting for the referee to fall over sideways from getting brushed against, have to act like he's shot on the outside of the ring for 5 minutes so that we can have whiskey and powder and pipes thrown around in there when he was one of the most interesting people. And now he's going to have the same match that 8 other guys have. What the hell is going on with this? It's so schizophrenic. Like on the same card, we have this deep story, this rich story of Taichi and Ishii finding each other as partners they can trust. And doing the whole, the Black Saints thing that goes back, my God, it goes back to like before any of this stuff, before any of us were watching, that type of thing. Goes all the way back to when these guys came into the company. And on the same card, we're getting, this whole Saturday morning cartoonish thing. It makes me wonder is there a group of people and different people are handling different parts of this card? Because it feels very Jekyll and Hyde. It doesn't feel like one person is doing all this. And it just seems so disjointed and so lost. And I'm just worried that this dumb version, this dumbed down thing where we are evil, wahahaha, versus we're the guys that are going to, like I said, guys you can take home to mom. And it's a whole bunch of these guys that are all the same against these guys that are all the same with none of that nuance. That's the focus now. I'm pissed. I'm having an existential crisis with New Japan right now. And I know that sounds funny, but this is my point on that. In the end, there is too much good wrestling in the world right now to sit through that much bad wrestling. And I don't know if I want to do it. We're going to see. But if this is the direction, this whole Avengers Endgame crap, and remember that killed the Marvel universe because nothing has worked since. Lining up with this dumbass simplistic storyline. If this is all that there is now, and we're going to throw out all the nuance and have good guys versus bad guys, there's too much good wrestling to watch crappy wrestling. That's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, we had this conversation off air, and I will say what I said there, and I hope it doesn't come to that. Truly, I would miss you if you were to just be like, nope, I'm done with this. I have to look at this and think that Tanahashi and Nagata and Kikuchi and Geto are not that dumb. Like that this is more of a we're resetting the stage and then we're going to fractionalize off roster parts into different factions and we're going there. But you can't get from that point to the next point without the point in between. And I do think it's going to take some time. I also think that there was stuff like Naito leaving that wasn't in their blueprint, and it's literally taking a lot of time for them to get past a Fantastica Mania where, LIJ has their last match in Arena Mexico and do all these kind of things. And we're in a period of transition. We talked about it 3 years ago when it was like Shota and Yoda and Ren and Yuga and how long it was going to take for them to get where they needed to be. And we're starting to get to that point where Yoda is getting to that main event person. 3 years later, he was the one that has clearly far and away been able to parlay some level of success. Do I have a feeling that Evil is going to be a top heel in the company for the foreseeable future? Yeah, I do. Is he a bad wrestler? No. Is it a bad gimmick sometimes? Yeah. Is it going to be a slog, a struggle, days where we're just going to be cursing our lives and this being one of the worst shows that we've seen? I think it's possible. But that is also the ebb and flow of all things wrestling. You know, there was like a time where WWE was completely unwatchable, and then they managed to get their shit together for people who enjoy watching it. And now it's just kind of turning back into something that's a bit more formulaic. You look at AEW, and you don't like AEW personally, but creatively, they had a struggle for the last 2.5 years, and they seem to, for some better or worse purpose, with a healthy roster, really seem to get their footing back with the fans. This is all cyclical. And that's how I look at it. It may be rough for 6 to 9 months, but we're here journalizing a wrestling promotion through all the intricacies, through the good and the bad. And for me, you know, if we write it out during the bad, I feel like it gives us more legitimacy to those that are following us, because we're not just in it because it was good. You know what I mean? Like, that's the part that I struggle with. It's like, are we doing it? Are we doing it for fun, or are we doing it because we're truly passionate and our voice is hopefully helping the company in the right direction?
Well, again, I just go to the idea that, my time is valuable.
Sure.
And, everyone's time is, by the way. That wasn't me saying your time.
No,
whoever I am talking to out there, your time is valuable, and how you spend it matters. And if I'm not going to sit here and be insulted by them either. And, and something similar happened in very different storyline ways, but something similar happened in the early 2000s when New Japan was doing the tail end of Enochiism, when he was doing the MMA, mixing things in, mixing MMA matches in with pro wrestling, and it was a disaster, and it didn't work. And he would throw guys like Nagata and sometimes Kojima to the wolves and put them in MMA matches just to get savagely beaten when they aren't trained to do this kind of stuff. And it turned a lot of people off, damn near killed the company. And the issue is, we look back at that now and say, well, we recovered from that. We got through it. That was several years. Where that company was kind of teetering around. And I didn't watch all that much back then, and it was different because there was no NJPW world. But I stopped trading the tapes. I wasn't that interested. I went and found other stuff. I was watching a lot more Noah back then, and
don't get me wrong, there's no.
And I get to me, I don't want to sit through 2 years of this, and I don't have to. And especially when I can watch Marigold, when I can watch Stardom, when I can watch CMLL. Oh my God, CMLL. When I can do that, I don't feel like I need to justify my existence and time by just saying, well, I'm going to ride this out and see if they get through it. And now, Colin, I want to get to some comments because the folks here have been saying some interesting things. Brad just says, with a few exceptions, House of Torture have some really good talent in the unit. They don't need to do this crap. They can get heat with small bits on cheating. Hate does the gimmick a lot better. That's the group in Stardom right there. And he also says that Tanahashi saved NJPW when he got his push years ago. He's ready to retire, and now we're hitting another dark era. Not as low, but it's dark. Don't leave Tana. I think Tana's knees would like to have a word with you on that, but I understand your point. And Colin says, well, Geto and Togo are the bookers. No, so it's their fault. Let's talk about that a little bit, because we don't know that. And here's my point on the bookers. I was thinking about this a lot over the last couple of weeks. People saying that Geto... fire Geto, like he's doing all this in a vacuum. Geto was never alone in booking New Japan. And even then, when he had other people helping him, whether it was Jado, whether it was Togo, whether it was anyone else, the company had input. I mean, we saw that the company was one of the reasons Rossi Ogawa got fired, because he was so frustrated that the guy that owned, booked, operated Stardom all those years was getting interference from Bushiroad. So it's very naive to think that Bushiroad isn't pushing buttons behind the scenes with New Japan as well. I have zero doubt that a lot of this stuff, especially this House of Torture stuff, is coming from other places and not just Ghetto, because it's so diametrically opposed to so much of what they've done for all the years that we've known the Ghetto isn't creative. But keep in mind, New Japan is not going to issue a press release regarding who their head of creative is.
Right.
They don't do that. Remember, New Japan has never officially said that they have a booker at all. This is supposed to be real. It's kayfabe, right? And a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But they have never released a head of creative name like that. That's not officially acknowledged as a thing in New Japan. We know because guys appear on non-official podcasts, including Ghetto. You know, he and Jado were on Talk is Jericho, and they talked a little bit about it. He's given interviews outside of that. But New Japan is never going to say, well, here's our creative committee, the way they do in the United States. It's just a different wrestling culture than that. So the fact that this has just taken such a... He's always had help. And so it's entirely possible this work has been divided because it's so foreign to how it's been booked in the past. And we are seeing some of that stuff still. You know, like I mentioned, the Taichi and Ishii thing is woven through. And that's still going on. That does go back many, many years. And then you have this very dumb, you know, Justice League thing going on with Hantai and House of Torture.
Justice League and the Legion of Doom.
And I was listening to our friends We Work Stiff, and I want to bring this up for a reason. They mentioned something that's very important when they were talking about this, and they're as apoplectic as we are about it, or as I am. Jeremy's the most chill of the four of us on this.
I'm pretty chill on it.
You are pretty chill on it, but his point was that, and I believe it was Josh, but Dave agreed. But they said that the problem with it is that in New Japan over the years, what we love is that the characters drive the story. I mentioned it earlier. The way these people interact over the years, they weave in and out of each other's careers. They come and go. Tanahashi and Takeshita, they managed to make that go back all the way to some DDT match from who knows how many years that maybe only those two of them ever remembered. You know, I certainly didn't have that on my radars, that there was something where Tanahashi was insulting toward DDT. How many years ago was it? But they wove that in, and it made it a compelling story then with Tanahashi and Takeshita and his relationship with DDT and that whole thing. And that was interesting. It added layers to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The issue with this, and Doki is the perfect example, and he's obviously the one I'm most upset about. Chase and Fale, whatever. But no, the point is, though,
I don't mean to laugh. It just, like, you say something like that. I'm like, yeah, you are very upset about Doki.
He said that he didn't want to join Hantai. Okay. His biggest rival is in Hantai, Desperado. He doesn't want to be Desperado's buddy. Okay. You got hurt against Desperado. All right. That makes enough sense, right? He doesn't particularly like Wato. I'm like, all right, fine. But now he's a tag team champion with Sho. Do you remember the Doki Sho feud? Because I do. That's the one where Sho pulled his mask off. He had the other mask on. That's where we got when Liger went the heel Liger type of thing. We got Kishin. Thank you. Kishin. These guys hated each other the same way he says he hated Desperado, the same way he hated Doki, or Wato, I mean. But Doki's just okay with him. And again, it's a thing where, well, the point that We Were Stiff guys were making, I thought it was a great one. It wasn't a matter of it makes sense for Doki to join this group. Instead, it was, we need a heel junior in this group, so we will just put Doki in it. The story made the move, not the character.
Absolutely.
And that's a problem.
That was the most frustrating part for me.
Yeah.
And
that is the problem.
That was the part where, like, we went back and forth, and I went and re-listened to it. It got a little chippy between you and I about, like, the Desperado Doki, why didn't we do this match?
Yes. Asinine.
And it was just like,
it's NWO again. It's the NWO again. Where we're just like, oh, he turned. It's a shocking thing. Yes, you know why it was a surprise? Because it doesn't make any goddamn sense.
I am with you, and there were just no good options. And hopefully we can move forward with it, and we can move past, like, the, you know, very undisputably bad debut, and then we can start making it make sense. It is not, there's no coming back from this right now. You know what I mean? Like, that's the part. I like the Kanemaru, like, headcanon that I hope that they establish, because, again, one of the things that I dislike, and I'm on record saying it, is when a promotion asks the audience to fill in the gaps of a story rather than the promotion filling in the story for the audience. You know, if Kanemaru is the guy to bring Doki in, I want that explicitly spelled out at some point. It makes perfect sense that would be the case, but I can't say, you know what I mean? I can't say for Hinata and Kanemaru being those guys.
And Brad mentions that's why Yoshinobu should have been the partner with Doki and not Sho, because Nobu and Doki have that history. And you can make the case. You can make the case in that sense, just like what you're saying, Jeremy. I agree with you. It just shows again that in this story, this Hantai House Torture story, pointing it out, this one just has less thought and less nuance than the others. It's just put together dumber. It's just not.
Can we double back to the beginning of this whole conversation about the booking committee?
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
So we trailed a little bit far off, but I want to ask you, Steven, do you think Geto and Jado booked Yuji Nagata versus Bolton Oleg as his first never openweight title defense?
Well, I think that would be something that Geto would do, because it would again go. They can build upon that. It's like, this was the guy that worked with Bolton when he came into the Bushi Road Amateur Wrestling Club, the one that got, that their history again. Yes, that seems like, I don't know, but yes.
Do you think it's more possible that Yuji Nagata booked that match?
Possibly. It certainly was a whole group.
Yuji Nagata is part of that booking team. Hiroshi Tanahashi is part of that booking team. Kikuchi is part of that booking team. There is a committee of people, and every time that somebody says, oh, this is on Geto, Geto's probably sitting there looking at the internet like, those stupid people. Like, I had nothing to do with it.
Well, he's one of them. There's no doubt he's one of them. But there are a whole lot of people
in the room, right? Yeah, but we need to disabuse ourselves of the notion that it is Geto or bust. That he is the only person making any decision whatsoever.
Well, that's what I said earlier. Right. But he's always had input. He's always had input from other people. And it's just that there have been times when it has been described to us. Again, the company has never said so, but it has been described to us by wrestlers doing podcasts and telling us a little bit, pulling the curtain a little bit about that he's the main one, not the only one.
People on our show have told us who has input on the booking team.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but again, there have been times when he's definitely the main guy, never the only guy. That's the key. So, it's not like they have an editor.
I don't mean to
it's not like they have a Vince McMahon editor in chief
who thinks that it's only Geto, but it is a long-held false belief.
Yeah, and it's certainly an influential guy and at times the head of that committee, but not always the editor in chief right there. All right. Okay, so we've talked about that. We'll see how it plays out. We'll see how it goes. But in the meantime, there was a show that was not on NJPW World proper, but was available as a pay-per-view. It was the chaos that was the Desperado Death Pain Invitational. Jeremy, you purchased this pay-per-view, as it turns out, and caught it. So you are going to be our eyes and ears on the Death Pain Invitational.
Do I have to? I guess I do.
If I had to do Soul,
okay. For those people that were excited about this show and watched it and enjoyed it, here is the truth. I don't love these shows. I don't particularly enjoy them, but I understood how important Desperado versus Jun Kasai was to the greater lore of Japanese pro wrestling. And when I woke up that morning and the match happened, I saw a ton of rave reviews for it. And I was like, well, okay, let's do it. And so I watched the show, and it was pretty much the Death Bay Invitational running it back. You know, if you saw that show 2 years ago, escalating violence throughout the matches. The last two matches of the show were mainly the most hardcore of the matches. And then the rest of it was kind of a New Japan undercard with some guest stars. It opened with an 8-man tag team match with Dragon Libre, Gentaro, Kengo, and Tatsuhito Takaiwa versus 6 or 9, which is Wado and Taguchi, Daiki Nagai, and Katsura Murashima.
Yeah, so these are a bunch of the Freedom's crew here on the other side.
Right,
of this one.
The other side, and they had Freedom Young Lions on here. So the 6 of 9 team defeated the Freedom crew on that one, and then we had a tag team match, which was let's see here. Taiji Shimori and Gedo versus, where is it here? Mammoth Sasaki and Takashi Sasaki, and they defeated the Bullet Club when they pinned Gedo. And we were looking at more New Japan Soul Style undercard with this kind of match. And then after that, we had a singles match, which was Kosei Fujita versus Jun Masoayaka, which I may have that pronunciation wrong, but this was a really good match, pretty fantastic. Kosei Fujita is definitely getting warmed up for that title defense that he has on title match against Desperado on July 6th, and probably the second best match on this show.
Cool.
After that, we had Kenji Fukumoto and Masashi Takeda, and this was an intergender match with Rina Yamashita and Suzu Suzuki. This was actually billed as an X match, in which I think Suzu Suzuki was the surprise.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
and I see that you have a porked up version of NWO Sting on the one.
Yeah,
side
that was kind of a weird group. Like, he was walking the other guy around by a leash, and not. It was a 17-minute hardcore tag team match in which two women wrestled two men. So that pretty much tells you everything you need to know about that one. People seem to like it on Cage Match, but it did nothing for me because I wasn't really familiar with a whole lot of the people in this match.
Brad is there putting over June. He says he's a really good talent, one of the best pure wrestlers in Freedoms, by the way. So there you go.
Jun Masaoka. The one
and he also liked that Rina Yamashita is now in the My Vida Loca faction in Stardom, one of the new heel groups right there. So she and Suzu working together made sense in that storyline sense.
Probably should have had Brad come on the show with us today. he made his podcast debut doing a Batman rewatch the other day. So he's got the gear now. So maybe we'll
there you go.
Here sometime.
All right. Well, what do you got now? What was after?
All right, we semi-main with Oleg Bolton and Toru Sugiura defeating Tomoyo Harada and Toru Yano. That match was pretty much everything that you thought it would be, my friend. Everything that you thought it would be, and then. The reason I spent $22.99 was El Desperado versus Jun Kasai.
And this is with the title on the line.
With the title on the line, big deal match. Have you seen or heard anything about this match, Steven?
I saw so New Japan World has put a bunch of stuff up, including the backstage comments and included the in-ring comments. You know how the backstage comments will take the winner's comments in front of the crowd and also translate them. Oddly enough, it didn't translate a couple of the middle matches. They were just in Japanese with no translation.
Hadn't gotten there yet, huh?
Yeah, I guess not. But these did. So you saw how emotional the two were after, but I did not see what all happened in it.
There was emotion going into it. This was an unusual match in the way that it started because there wasn't animosity or animus or even hatred between the two. There was actually love and respect. And they both came out wearing all white. Desperado had a completely white mask with white face paint on underneath.
Well, wearing white when you're going to bleed is a long-standing.
It was a very deliberate choice, and we will get to this.
Kenny Omega's outfit when he was going to bite into the bubble of or not the bubble, the water balloon of blood on Dynamite or Collision, whatever the hell that was.
There was a crucifix-style plywood board placed in one corner. There were two pieces of sheet glass placed in adjoining corners to that. Jesus. I believe every single set of ring ropes had a dozen fluorescent tubes affixed to it like fence posts. And then throughout the match, they had taped bands of about 8 or 10 fluorescent tubes tied to it. There was one set of fluorescent tubes tied to a steel chair so that when it was hit with a steel chair, it was done with that. And then there was a bed of roses. Roses were a huge part of this match. Jun Kasai bladed with a rose thorn before the match ever started. So before the match started, he just had a single drop of red blood coming from his forehead. And then they shook hands at the beginning and then proceeded to decimate and maul each other for 29 and a half minutes.
Hey.
Within 2 minutes, they were both a bloody mess. The fluorescent light tubes were all over the floor. They were all over the bodies of both men. Within about 5 minutes, the amount of blood on both men's backs and chests seeping through El Desperado's mask and on their pants, everything was red. Everything was red, Steven.
I'm going to take a wild guess to say Barb Sasaki, the referee on this one.
It might have been. I'm not 100% sure because I really paying attention to the carnage because I locked it in twice with the decision that I'm never going to watch it ever again. And some of the notable things were a top rope battle in which Desperado took the skewers and shoved it into Jun Kasai's head and then threw him onto the table of a bed of roses on the outside, in which Jun Kasai landed. All you could see underneath him was a red splatter of blood on the table underneath all of the roses. They immediately got the piece of wood out of the way of the camera, and it was absolute carnage. But everything had a reason. It all flowed, and these two are absolute masters of what they do. I hate these matches. I'll watch one every couple of years because, circumstances dictate it. Desperado is out of his mind. Jun Kasai is completely out of his mind. Jun Kasai did a off the top of the ladder splash when he put on his goggles and did a signature move and landed onto Desperado while the entirety of the ring was covered in shards of glass. Covered in shards of glass. They hit both of their finishers multiple times, and when neither one of them could put the other one down, they, in a fit of frustration, crushed all the remaining fluorescent tubes over their heads and over their bodies before they went into the final of the match, which I think was 2 Pinche Locos, a kick out, and a flip off by Jun Kasai, followed by 2 more Pinche Locos, while glass is jutting out of Desperado's chin as he's going for the pinfall.
Wow. All right.
By the end of the match, Desperado's all-white mask, by design, is completely red as it has been soaked in blood that he had been cut open from the top of his face. He bought a see-through mesh mask that was intentionally designed to turn red with the amount of blood that he was going to unload on his face. This was unbelievable. There are people that have said it's the best death match they've ever seen. I don't know if you could ever do another Jun Kasai, Desperado death match, because frankly, they did so much here that they unloaded the tank. You know what I mean? The kitchen sink has been thrown. That's what this was. And it was for a title, and it was for all the marbles, and they loved each other when they went into the match, and that same love and adoration existed at the end. And when that bell rang, they turned into 2 monsters that knew that they were going to stop at nothing to end the other. And that's what this was.
Now, Brad says Desperado is the greatest wrestler in the world that does death matches, but isn't a death match wrestler.
That's probably pretty accurate.
Meanwhile, thank you for that, Jeremy. I'm glad you were able to
took the hint for that one.
Well, I'm glad you were able to tell us what's going on, because these matches do matter for Desperado and his character. Mm-hmm. This is canon. This is part of the New Japan story and the story of his character. So I'm glad you were able to tell us what happened.
You want to hear a funny story about this?
Yeah, sure.
The crowd, super hot.
Wait, pardon me. Before you do that, Brad says that Kasai gave Despy an invitation for another match in 2035.
I can't believe that's real. We'll
see if June's around, and I hope he is. That's not a smart ass remark, but I mean, after what I see June doing to himself on a regular basis, 2035, ambitious. I hope he's okay. June is weirdly charismatic. And I also acknowledge that while this is not my type of wrestling, that he is outstanding in this type, that he is a rare talent that makes some of this stuff mean something, which I think is missing from a lot of death matches and things. So I recognize
incredibly important.
It's maybe not my cup of tea, but in the same way that the Grateful Dead ain't my type of music, I also recognize they're a great band. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah. So a funny story is that, like, when this match, when they're getting the ready match, the crowd erupted. Like, this is what they were here for. Like, they were polite and into everything else, but this Jun Kasai Desperado death match is what got people into the building, including one guy who is probably considered an auteur in all of video game making. His name is Hideo Kojima, and he put out a video game on the day that this match happened, got one of the highest scores that it could possibly get in the video game world, and he celebrated by going to see El Desperado and Jun Kasai tear each other apart. And that's why I love wrestling.
Hey, the man's familiar with fatalities, right? So there we go. All right. So now we are missing some people, if you notice, from this tour right there. And that's because there are quite a few members of the New Japan roster in Mexico touring with CMLL. So that was my new thing, Jeremy, by the way. I have, I have the CMLL subscription thing. I subscribed on the YouTube there, $9 a month, and I can watch the shows. The issue is, when you do that level, if you don't go all the way up to the $25 a month,
35
subscription, 20. There's a 35. There's also a 25. 3 tiers. Okay. If you get the $25 tier, you can see the Friday shows live. When you get to the $35 tier, you even see the Anniversario live. You even see the Leyenda show live, all that kind of stuff. I went with the lower tier. I can wait a little bit. I have to wait 10 days for the Super Friday shows to show up, but I will do so. So I have not actually seen the show from Friday yet because it has not been uploaded for my tier yet. But just to give you an idea of what was going on out there, there were AEW talent. This was the big Fantastica Mania in Mexico. AEW, New Japan, and CMLL. Mercedes Moné won the CMLL World Women's title from Catalina. I imagine that they have somewhere to go. Continuing the belt collector story with Moné, we have Yota Tsuji. Defeated Ultimo Guerrero by disqualification, and Hiromu Takahashi, Titan, and Shingo Takagi teamed up to defeat the United Empire team of Francesco Akira, Templario, and TJP. Kevin Knight lost a lightning match to Neon. Now, a lightning match is a 10-minute sprint match, a relampago match, as they call it there. So, but Neon defeated Kevin Knight there. 9 minutes, 33 seconds almost went to the draw. Ricochet defeated Volador Jr. Not to do with New Japan, but thought it was interesting. And that was thanks to an unpunished foul, is how it's listed here. An unpunished foul, so cheating bastard. And then we had
Volador not a heel anymore?
I'm kind of wondering that too. Yeah, okay. I guess Ricochet is more of a heel since he's the visiting team, I guess, is more than anything else. But yeah, Volador is a Rudo now. And then now that this continued on, they moved on to the Saturday show. They were at Arena Coliseo, which is a different building in Greater Mexico City. Mexico City, very large city. So they have a couple of buildings there. Arena Coliseo on Saturday. And that was when Akira, Templario, and TJP defeated Gran Guerrero, Stuka Jr., and Ultimo Guerrero. So the Guerrero team. LIJ, same three, Hiromu, Shingo, Titan. They defeated Barboza, Defunto, and Zandakan Jr. So Zandakan, unfortunately, after all of his efforts to try to join LIJ, ends up on the other side of the ring from him in this one. I'm trying to see if there's... that was it for the New Japan talent there. What else do we have here? They moved on to Sunday back at Arena Mexico. This is the show that's in the afternoon and is geared more toward families. But Hiromu, Shingo, and Titan won the main event against Angel de Oro, Hechicero, and Niebla Roja, which had to be pretty good. Akira, Templario, and TJP got a win over Averno, Euphoria, and El Mephisto. That was the semi-main event. And Sunday, they continued on. So they're doing the whole tour. They're going with them all week, and they popped up again in Arena Puebla, all the way down to Arena Puebla, which is not a terribly long drive from Arena Mexico, but they don't always get the A troops in Arena Puebla. Sometimes they do, and this time they got LIJ losing to the Sky team, which is talk about talent. You had Neon again, Mystico, and Mascara Dorada on the winning team on that one. Once again, United Empire in the semi-main, where they faced and defeated Barbaro Cavernario, Defunto, and Zendokan Jr. That was by DQ. And then they were up again back at Arena Mexico on Tuesday. So they've been doing the whole tour, and will eventually be joining back up, of course, with New Japan. But for a while, they're out of the country doing this. And this time, excuse me, on Tuesday, sorry about that, United Empire beat LIJ in the main event on Tuesday.
So that pretty much covers everything that happened. And when we come back next week, we'll have 2 shows to preview. The big shows on July 4th and July 6th. And we'll be recapping all the shows that happened, including, hopefully, we'll get some clips or some footage of Tanahashi Jam. Otherwise, we'll just pretty much just feel pretty strongly. What we see is what we get based off of whatever footage we can get of it. Because we've been told Tanahashi Jam isn't going to be on World right away. So we will see it when we see it. But we'll have all the reports on how that show went as to whether Hiroki Goto defended his title against Zack Sabre Jr., if ELP defends against a mystery opponent or even defends at all, and a couple other matches.
So tomorrow, Friday, they're in Shiga. That's not going to be on NJPW World. It's just a house show, basically the same show they've been doing. Wanted to run down the lineup for Tanahashi Jam Sunday, and Aichi, again, not able to see live on NJPW World, as you said. It'll be a television special in Japan. Pretty cool they're doing that, though. And that will be Murashima against Daiki Odashima, who is a Noah Young Lion. So it's a Noah Young Lion against our top Young Lion. Taguchi, Umino, and Tanahashi will face Leona, Hiromu Takahashi, and Tatsumi Fujinami. And Leona is Leona Fujinami, Tatsumi's son. So father-son team on there, teaming with Hiromu. So, again, the LIJ crew will be back in Japan by the weekend. Then we have Yoshihashi, Taichi, Tomohiro Ishii, and Yuya Uemura facing Chase Owens, Yujiro, Ren Narita, and Evil. Why on a Tanahashi Jam produced show he would invite House of Torture in kayfabe makes zero sense whatsoever. But hey, again, we're not doing too much thinking in New Japan anymore. We say that it's just more American style. Leave your brain at the door with some of this stuff. The Never Openweight title will be on the line, as you mentioned. Oleg taking on Yuji Nagata, his mentor within the New Japan system anyway. Teacher versus student here. By the way, I found a little piece of weird trivia, Jeremy. You know how we kind of laugh when they call the Bolton Splash the flying body sausage? The Japanese announcer called it flying body sausage. It's kind of a funny thing. I have been going back, as usual. I'm still preoccupied with 1985, as the song lyric goes. I'm watching stuff from 40 years ago, and I'm moving through the various territories. Well, I went back and watched some New Japan from 40 years ago. King Kong Bundy was in New Japan at the beginning of the year, and this is just before he really started his WWF run. When he went to WrestleMania, he was at the first WrestleMania on March 31st, 1985. But in February, he was a top heel for New Japan. They called his splash back in 1985 the Flying Body Sausage. So that the name of that move goes all the way back.
The Flying Body Sausage roll.
Oh, absolutely, especially with the way Bundy did it. But yeah, you're right. But that is it. So that is a way back. Comes from the Wayback Machine. That wasn't invented for Bolton. The Flying Body Sausage goes all the way back to King Kong Bundy, at least. We can trace it back 40 years at least. We also on that show, Wato, Yo, Desperado, and Dragon Kid will face Sonata, Sho, Doki, and Kanemaru. And then ELP's open challenge for the TV title. My theory on this, Jeremy, is that it's going to be Tanahashi. I think he's going to work 3 times on his own show. I just think that's going to be it. That's just a guess right there. And then after that, it'll be Goto versus Zack Sabre Jr. for the world title, which will give Tanahashi a chance to rest because he and another guy whose knees are not cooperating, Naomichi Marufuji from Noah, they will team up to face Ryohei Oiwa and Kato Kiyomiya. So we're going to go back to that. That is, of course, Oiwa's regular tag team partner from his excursion in Noah. That was
I like that callback.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool one right there. And of course, all those guys know how to work with each other. So I'd imagine that despite the physical limitations of some of the guys involved, they'll be able to pull something decent out there. And then, of course, we'll be back to talk about that stuff. And we'll be setting up July 4th at the Tokyo Budokan. So July 4th, we'll be back on July 3rd. On the 4th, we'll see Kojima versus Oiwa for the A block spot. We'll see Yoshihashi versus Chase Owens for the B block spot. Trios titles will be on the line. House of Torture, Yujiro, Ren Narita, and Sho. Not enough. There's not enough House of Torture on this show, Jeremy. We need more. It's going to be against Yano, Wato, and Yo. That's going to be the trios match. And then we'll have Tanahashi versus Gabe Kidd for the global title. I'm curious to see how that goes. I am curious about that match. The others, less so. July 6th, the Korakuen Hall. So that'll be on Sunday, July 6th. Desperado versus Fujita for the title. They announced that. That's going to be the junior heavyweight title match at the end of the tour. And then Wado and Yo will face Sho and Doki for the junior tag team titles. That'll be July 6th at Korakuen. So that's going to be another one where the junior heavyweights take center stage.
Is there any match on July 4th that doesn't matter? Because they got the play-in and they got all those other matches. Feels like that was a pretty important show.
It does feel like a fairly important show story wise going into G1 there. Yeah.
Do you plan for July 4th, Steven?
Do they think they plan for July 4th? What's
do you
that?
have any big plans for July 4th?
Oh yeah, we're gonna have people over to the house. I'm in a neighborhood that is apparently in a legal gray area, which means apparently the fireworks are awesome.
Yeah, please keep all your fingers and toes intact. Please.
Oh, I'm not gonna be setting any off. I'll be watching, but and I'll be there with my hose in the front yard. We just got this house, and I'm not gonna let it burn down. So new place. So we're not gonna let that happen. But apparently, this is a neighborhood very Americana. There's a 4th of July parade for the kids, and then they're going to be fireworks at night. And again, like I said, all these fireworks stands kind of show up at the side of the road this time of year, like a lot of places, but they aren't legal within the city limits of Austin. But apparently we're in this little zone here where I have an Austin address.
It's so darn enforced.
Yeah. So apparently people are going to be blowing some stuff up. So we'll be watching.
Well, that sounds lovely. I am not going to be anywhere near anything like that.
Okay. And Brad is telling us that Ring of Honor just announced for the Supercard of Honor on July 11th, Bandito putting the ROH title on the line against Konosuke Takeshita. That'll be good. It'll be a good match anyway. I mean, Bandito is really good. I like Bandito a lot.
That's a weird match.
It's a weird match, but I bet it turns out to be pretty good. Don't you think?
I have no doubt it'll be really good, but sucks that Takeshita is not on All In. Except maybe the Casino Gauntlet. That's how it sucks to me.
He's not, is he actually? And that's the next night, isn't it? That's the Supercard of Honor is the 11th, and the stadium shows the 12th. Do I have that correct?
But he's on the G1, so that's what they do. They don't give him too many big plans, and then off to the G1, and then maybe he'll have a multi-man tag on Forbidden Door.
I would much rather have him in the G1 than
I agree.
in Arlington. So yeah, I'm just happy we get him for a little while there. So
I agree. All right, you want to wrap this thing up?
We can wrap this thing up. If you have any other questions, by all means, you can send it to my StephenConway88@gmail.com, or you can ask them here. But I just want to say thanks to everybody who has spent time with us here live as part of our YouTube show, and to anybody that watches this later, listens to it later as a podcast. Like I said, your time is valuable. We acknowledge that your time is valuable, and we are grateful that you spend some of it with us each week. I want to thank Brad, Colin, Venkin.
Amazing.
Maria, who else is here? Fernando was here. All you guys, really appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. It is affirming and lovely to know that people want to hear what I have to say about pro wrestling. So, thank you.
All right. So for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. This has been Speaking of Strong Style. We will talk to you again real soon.